Airline shares have been hammered since the start of the crisis. Many companies are struggling for their very survival. But those same shares have soared this week on hopes of a recovery. American Airlines is up some 60% on the week, while International Airlines Group, which owns BA, was up 25% by this morning. And as you can see, it is up further today. That's on hopes of air corridors across Europe. IAG shares some 12% to the good right now. We're live now to British Airways headquarters in West London, where I can speak exclusively to IAG's chief executive, Willie Walsh. Willie, welcome to you. You're cutting 12,000 jobs. That seems rather extreme.
Well, Ian, what we're doing is we're consulting with the trade unions, with the elected representatives on potential job cuts. No decision has been taken in relation to actual redundancies. But what we have done is, in compliance with the law, and it's important to state this, there is a legal obligation on the company to submit these documents to the elected representatives and then engage in consultations to give everybody an opportunity to try and reduce, to mitigate, to do anything we can to reduce the impact of the potential restructuring on the business. That is what we're doing at British Airways, and that is why we want the trade unions to engage with the British Airways management team and to represent the people that are working hard in British Airways to ensure that the airline can have a future.
Well, the unions say that it's not necessary to negotiate under these Section 188 redundancy notices. They say, for example, that Ryanair and EasyJet haven't had to resort to that.
Well, we would disagree. And in fact, there's plenty of legal precedents where trade unions have sued and successfully sued companies who have engaged in discussions without submitting these 188 letters. And in fact, British Airways was one of those companies sued by Unite in the past. And if you look back, there's a very recent case with Monarch Airlines, who were sued by Unite for not going through the formal process. So we're acting under legal advice and in compliance with the law, and that's what we intend to do. So, you know, this is a really stressful time for everybody, but I think you've got to realize, and I'm sure people do, we're not flying. Last month, in May, we flew a total of 485 passenger flights, 485 in a month. We did that by lunchtime on the 1st of May last year. So this is the most difficult challenge the airline industry has ever faced. It's unprecedented, and we need to take action to ensure that all of the airlines in the group and everybody in the industry is taking action to ensure that we can survive this and to ensure that we have a competitive business for the future.
Why is the axe falling at British Airways the most profitable part of IAG rather than at other parts of the group?
Well, that is just untrue in all of the airlines in the group. And as you know, you mentioned it yourself, airlines globally are pursuing restructuring. You know, the focus here is on British Airways because we're in the United Kingdom. But I can assure you that all of the airlines in IAG face the same challenge. And the management teams at all of the airlines are pursuing the very same issues. The scale of the change is pretty similar for all of the airlines. And the measures that will be taken, I believe, are going to be similar. But these are individual companies. The responsibility at British Airways is for the management team at BA. At Iberia, it will be the Iberia management team, in the same way as in Ireland, it will be the Aer Lingus management team. So it's untrue to say that British Airways is the only company in the group looking at restructuring. I can assure you all of the airlines in the group are doing so.
What about this allegation from the union of thuggish behaviour that we heard from Len McCluskey, this notion that you're going to make staff redundant and then rehire them on lower salaries? Again, Ian, I have to stress, what we have done in compliance with the law is to set out proposals that we want to consult on. It's for the trade union to engage, to do the responsible thing, to represent their members who are crying out for the union to do so, to sit down with the management team to try and come up with solutions. That is the responsible thing to do. It is by no means an exercise that we enjoy doing or want to do. It's an exercise that we have to do. We are facing the greatest crisis the industry has ever seen, and we need to respond. And that means every management team has to do what's right for the airlines that they manage. But some members of the cabin crew have told us that they're facing pay cuts of 70%. I mean, that seems pretty severe. Ian, I can tell you that the proposals have been put forward with a view to consultation. We have not taken any decision. It would be irresponsible for us to make these decisions without giving people the opportunity to sit down with us in consultation and come forward with alternatives to what it is we are looking to do. And that's exactly what the law requires us to do. That is exactly what we are committed to doing. And I can assure you the British Airways management team have made themselves available now for over 160 different meetings with the trade union representatives to try and progress this issue. I'm pleased to say we are in consultation with the pilots union BALPA. Those consultations continue. The reports I get are that some progress has been made. They have not concluded. But I would hope that the trade unions do what the law requests of them, because the obligation is on us to consult. You know, if they don't want to turn up to the consultation, clearly that's a decision that they would take. But I would urge them to do what is right for the people in British Airways and to sit down at the table and engage in these consultations so that we can together do what is right. I'm not involved in the consultations. It's the responsibility of the British Airways management team. They are ready, willing and able to do this.
The problem is, Willie, a lot of staff appear to have lost confidence in the BA management and would probably rather see you at the table.
I think that's unfair, Ian. You know, I think the management team is working very, very hard to do what's right. They've demonstrated in the past that they can do that. British Airways is a very well-run company. The people in BA, from top to bottom, right across the organisation, are great people. They all work very hard. They are all committed to the success of the airline. And I've absolutely no doubt that everybody at British Airways, even those that recognise that they may not have a future in the business, want to see British Airways succeed.
What about this campaign by Unite for you to lose slots at Heathrow? If you're losing 25% of staff, will you need as many slots in future?
It is a challenge, I will be honest with you, but don't forget this is across the British Airways group. So British Airways has a significant operation at London City, at Gatwick and at other airports. So it's not just about Heathrow. But clearly we would like to, for the future, secure all of the slots that we currently have at Heathrow. That may not be possible. It may require us to leave some of the slots that we don't intend to operate, but we would like to see, given that slots at Heathrow tend to be at a premium, we would like to see if we can retain all of those. If we can't, because the business can't afford to do so, that will be a regrettable decision, but it just puts into context the crisis that we are facing today.
Now, another point that the union have made to us is, why is IAG going through with the acquisition of Air Europa? That doesn't look like the activity of a cash-strapped business.
Well, first and foremost, IAG is not going through it. The acquisition is done at an Iberia level. And I think it's important to stress, you know, IAG is a single economic entity with multiple operating entities. And when we talk about the cash in the business, we aggregate the cash that is held by all of the individual airlines. But if Iberia is to progress the deal with Air Europa, it will be because it's in the best interest of Iberia, and the acquisition will be made by Iberia, not by British Airways. British Airways will not have any involvement in it, and not a single penny of British Airways money will go towards that acquisition. So each of the individual airlines have cash balances, they have their own balance sheets, and it's the responsibility of each of the management teams to ensure that they're running the business in an appropriate fashion. So if the Iberia Air Europa merger goes ahead, it's not going to in any way impact on the people in British Airways.
Why hasn't BA sought state aid in the way that Lufthansa and Air France KLM have?
Well, it's a great question, but the reality is state aid has not been made available in the UK. So what British Airways has done, it has applied under the CCFF, the Bank of England scheme, where we've issued commercial paper that the Bank of England have acquired. We've done so up to the maximum amount that's available to British Airways, which is £300 million. We've availed of all other facilities that we can in the UK. But there is no state-guaranteed loan system in the UK, unlike other countries. And there is no appetite, and you've heard the Chancellor in many interviews make this clear, You know, he doesn't have an appetite for stepping in. He insists that all businesses must do what they can within their own resources, first and foremost. And it's only when all of those resources and opportunity and avenues have been exhausted should companies go to look for state aid. So the system in the UK is completely different. In fact, there is no common system across Europe. So we have done everything that is within our power to boost the cash balance of British Airways. We're exhausting every single opportunity we can. And if the UK government, like some other European governments, wants to make state-guaranteed loans available to business, and it's sensible for us to do so, I can assure you we will apply for them.
Now, obviously, you were hoping to get more flights airborne over the next few weeks, but the UK government's just introduced this 14-day quarantine period for UK arrivals. How unhelpful was that?
It's terrible. I wrote to MPs last night to say, you know, that this initiative has in effect torpedoed our opportunity to get flying in July. We think it's irrational. We think it's disproportionate, and we are giving consideration to a legal challenge to this legislation. So we're reviewing that with the lawyers later on today. I suspect there are other airlines who are doing so, because it's important to point out there was no consultation with the industry prior to enacting this legislation, and we do believe it is an irrational piece of legislation.
And briefly, if you would please, Willie, what progress are you making on refunds for cancelled flights?
Yeah, we're doing everything possible, and I'm pleased to say that the staff who are dealing with that are working flat out to try and make sure that everybody who's entitled to a refund gets it. You know, I think we're well ahead of most people in the industry, and we will continue to do so. But we have committed to our customers that if they're entitled to a refund, they will get that refund.
All right, Willie Walsh, great talking to you. Thanks very much for your time. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ian.